What happens to the global economy when the world's most vital energy artery is severed and the traditional guardians of the sea refuse to step in? In a stunning break from a century of naval tradition, the United Kingdom has officially rejected an American demand to deploy warships to the Strait of Hormuz, leaving the US administration to face a decapitated Iranian regime alone. This is not just a diplomatic rift, it is a fundamental reconfiguration of the global order. Today, we are going to uncover the mechanics of this unprecedented standoff, why America's oldest allies are suddenly backing away from a direct military confrontation, and how a policy vacuum in other major economies is leaving the world vulnerable to an energy shock that no one is prepared to manage. The stakes of this blockade are absolute. If the Strait of Hormuz remains closed, roughly 1/5 of the world's daily oil consumption is instantly removed from the market, potentially sending crude prices into a vertical climb that would bankrupt industries and ignite global hyperinflation. If the US-led coalition fails to reopen the passage, it signals the end of American naval hegemony and the birth of a fragmented ocean where trade is determined by bilateral deals with regional militants rather than international law. However, if a full-scale war breaks out, the resulting humanitarian and environmental disaster in the Persian Gulf would redefine geopolitical instability for a generation. The situation has moved beyond traditional deterrence into a phase of active, high-intensity economic warfare, where the very concept of a secure shipping lane has vanished. The historical roots of this crisis lie in the dramatic events of February 28, 2026, when a joint US-Israeli strike targeted and killed Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei. This decapitation of the Iranian state triggered an immediate and asymmetrical response from Tehran's Central Military Command. By declaring the Strait of Hormuz a closed zone to any vessel linked to the United States, Israel, or their hostile allies, Iran has effectively weaponized geography. Historically, the West relied on a unified front to keep these lanes open, but the current power dynamics have shifted. The special relationship between London and Washington is currently at its lowest point in decades, as Prime Minister Keir Starmer prioritizes domestic stability over a protracted Middle Eastern war that many in Europe view as an American-led escalation they did not sign up for. The key actors in this friction are President Donald Trump, who is pushing for a multinational armada and a coalition of reluctant allies including France, Germany, Japan, and Australia. While Washington has dispatched a detachment of US Marines from the Far East to the Persian Gulf, signaling the potential for a ground intervention, its partners are maintaining a defensive and protective posture. The German Foreign Ministry has expressed deep skepticism that expanding existing naval missions into the Hormuz will improve security, fearing it will only draw Europe into an open-ended conflict. Meanwhile, Iran is playing a sophisticated diplomatic game by allowing Chinese-linked vessels to pass through the blockade. This has led to a surreal tactical development where international ships are reportedly spoofing their transponder signals to appear Chinese, seeking safe passage under Beijing's shadow while the West remains paralyzed. The recent developments in the Persian Gulf are backed by hard numbers and rapid military movements. Following the phone call on March 15th between Starmer and Trump, it became clear that the UK will only offer unmanned systems for minesweeping rather than the destroyers Washington requested. This follows a previous flashpoint where Trump criticized the UK for refusing to allow Middle Eastern bases to be used for initial strikes. The data shows that the US is now attempting to cobble together a coalition of the unidentified, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, while major naval powers like France and South Korea have already publicly opted out. This suggests that any forthcoming coalition will be a shell of its former self, lacking the broad international legitimacy required to stabilize the markets. We must now consider two critical what-if scenarios. In the first, the US decides to act unilaterally, using its marine detachment to seize Iranian coastal assets and force the strait open. This would likely trigger a massive swarm drone and mine-laying response from Iran's remaining military structure, leading to the permanent scuttling of tankers in the channel and a decade-long closure of the route. The second scenario involves the further sinification of the Gulf. If only Chinese flagged ships can navigate the Hormuz, Beijing effectively becomes the sole arbiter of global energy prices. In this outcome, the Western alliance collapses entirely, and nations like the UK and France are forced to negotiate their energy needs directly with Tehran and Beijing, bypassing Washington's security umbrella for good. The geopolitical consequences of this blockade are already rippling through the global order. The refusal of Australia and Japan to participate in escorts signals a massive shift in the Indo-Pacific security architecture. These nations are no longer willing to follow the US into high-risk conflicts that do not offer a clear exit strategy. The global order is transitioning from a US-led unipolar system to a chaotic multipolar reality where regional powers can effectively hold the world's economy hostage. The failure of the Modi government to anticipate this shift and its ongoing domestic policy failures have ensured that India will be one of the hardest hit victims of this new reality, as it lacks the naval muscle of the US or the diplomatic immunity of China. Ultimately, the closure of the Hormuz is a mirror reflecting the fractures in our modern world. It shows us an America that is increasingly isolated in its pursuit of regime change, a Europe that is desperate to avoid another forever war, and an India that is tragically underprepared for the responsibilities of a major power due to its current leadership's failures. The next few weeks will determine if the global economy can survive this shock or if we are entering an era of permanent energy scarcity.